Welcome to Fascinating Flash. Today, we're really diving into something, something that feels both totally universal and yet eternally mysterious.
Mermaids.
Mermaids, yeah. Fantastic topic.
You share this amazing stack of sources, and it's just incredible how these, half-human, half-fish beings pop up in stories from almost everywhere on Earth.
It really is. It's wild how such a specific image, appears in so many different cultures, from way back in ancient myths right up to, modern art. Mermaids just keep grabbing our imagination.
Totally. So the plan today is to kind of explore together where these legends might have started, how they changed, let's say, depending on where you were in the world, and maybe what they tell us about ourselves, our relationship with the sea, with the unknown. I love it. Yeah, let's unpack some of those forgotten tales. Start this journey into the mermaid universe. So, where do we start? Seems like this goes way, way back, doesn't it? To the Middle East. That's right. We have to rewind quite a bit, back to ancient Assyria. We're talking maybe 1000 BC. That's where we first meet the goddess Atargatis.
Atargatis, okay. A key starting point.
Exactly. And the story, the core legend, it's actually really tragic. Legend says that Atargatis, she accidentally, caused the death of this human shepherd she was in love with.
Ooh, wow. Heavy stuff.
Yeah. And she felt so much guilt, just overwhelming shame, that she threw herself into the sea. She just wanted to disappear, like completely erase herself.
And did it work? Did she vanish?
Not quite. The sources say her beauty was just so powerful the ocean couldn't completely hide her, you see.
So the gods stepped in.
Yeah.
Transformed her, half woman, half fish.
That's the idea, making her one of the very first, let's say, documented mermaids we can point to.
That's the key moment, isn't it? This transformation born from heartbreak. And like all good stories, this one started to travel.
It did. It migrated west, and I imagine it reached Greece. The Greeks were always pretty tuned in to myths from other places.
Exactly. They recognized her as Derketo. And some even think this myth might have influenced the story of Aphrodite and Eros.
The gods of love, yeah.
Those same ones who, the story goes, turned into fish to escape a monster. And today we see them up there as the constellation Pisces.
There's a connection, maybe?
That's a great little detail. And speaking of Greece, obviously you have the Sirens from the Odyssey. But hang on, those original Sirens were pretty different from how we picture mermaids now, right?
Totally different. Yeah, the original Sirens, in the really old Greek myths, no fishtails. They were half woman, half bird.
Seriously. Bird? Like with wings?
Yes, picture it. Wings, feathers. Their power was definitely in their singing, though. A song so beautiful, so captivating, it just made sailors lose their minds.
Hypnotize them, basically.
Exactly. And crash their ships onto the rocks. Lethal. What a danger. Okay, so when did they get the fishtail? How did that big change happen? That switch seems to have come much later, probably with the influence of Christianity spreading, maybe merging with other sea legends. It's hard to say for sure.
I see.
But what they definitely kept from their feathered ancestors was that reputation. Dangerous seductresses, right?
Yeah.
Using their voice to lure men to their doom.
That part stuck, and that's when they start showing up with those classic props, the comb and the mirror. What's the deal with those?
Exactly. The comb and mirror became almost like their ID card.
Yeah.
And during the Middle Ages, especially through a Christian lens, they were seen as symbols of vanity.
Oh, right. Like sin, feminine pride, almost a warning sign.
Precisely. But it's fascinating because if you go further back to classical times, those exact same objects, the mirror and comb, they were attributes of Venus or Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty herself.
The very same. See how the story changes depending on who's telling it?
It's incredible how one figure can mean such wildly different things. Fascinating.
And if we hop around Europe a bit, the British Isles, for instance, seems like mermaids there weren't always very nice.
Not at all. In Britain, Ireland, seeing a mermaid was often a really bad sign. A terrible omen, actually.
Like what kind of bad sign?
They announced huge storms, shipwrecks. You see it in old ballads like Sir Patrick Spence, the mermaid shows up right before the disaster. And sometimes they were even described as like giants. Imagine how terrifying that would be.
Yikes. Okay, scary. But not all of them were monsters, right? I remember reading about a story from Cornwall that sounded more like a love story.
Yes, you must mean the legend of the mermaid of Zennor. That one's lovely. It's about a mermaid who fell completely in love with a village boy, Matthew Truella. He sang in the church choir.
The choir singer.
The choir singer. His voice was apparently so beautiful, the mermaid came out of the sea just to listen to him, you see. And, well, in the end, the love was mutual, and Matthew went with her to live beneath the waves.
Wow. Like a proper underwater fairy tale. And is anything else known about them?
Local folklore says yes, that on quiet summer nights, if you're near the coast, you can still hear their singing. Or so they say.
How romantic.
And just so no one doubts it, in the Zennor church itself, there's this wooden bench, carved maybe 600 years ago, with the mermaid right there on it, like proof.
What a great detail. But there was this sort of philosophical question hanging over mermaids in Europe, wasn't there? Something about whether they had souls.
Exactly. That was a huge question in European stories, and the most common answer was no. Since they weren't fully human, they didn't have an immortal soul like people did.
Right, like something essential was missing.
Right. And this often led to quite sad stories, mermaids wishing they could have a soul, although there are exceptions. Like an Icelandic tale about a woman named Lieben. She became a mermaid, lived for centuries underwater, but eventually she was baptized and, well, got her soul that way.
So there were nuances, in other parts of Europe. Scandinavia, for example.
Over there you had the half-fru. She could be good or bad, sort of unpredictable, sometimes helpful, sometimes she'd mess things up for you. Some legends even said they could predict the future.
Fortune tellers of the sea.
Something like that. And get this, they supposedly had families. They married mermen, called Hatman, and had little kids, the marmalar.
Marmalar.
Yes, tiny little beings that fishermen sometimes caught, apparently, to tell them what was going to happen. Like little pocket oracles, you could say.
Look at that. How curious. And we can't really leave Europe without mentioning Melusine, right? She's such a big figure in folklore.
Oh, absolutely. Melusine is fascinating. She's a kind of water spirit, sometimes with a serpent's tail, sometimes a feck tail. And she had this curse. Every Saturday, she had to reveal her non-human part.
Oh, wow. How complicated.
Very. Her story's packed with love, secrets, betrayal. A really complex character who influenced a lot of later legends about, hidden identities and curses.
It's a huge, complex world, just European mermaids alone. But let's take a leap now across continents. What about Asia? Did mermaids swim in Chinese legends, for instance?
Oh, yes, and for a very long time. In really ancient Chinese texts, like the classic of Mountains and Seas, they were already talking about a people called the Di, basically fish people.
Fish people, literally, not just half and half.
Exactly. And they mention other creatures, too, like the wren or human fish. Later on, you get more detailed descriptions of the Gerenjo, the human sea fish, head of a beautiful woman, white skin, long hair.
Sounds familiar so far.
But here's the really striking part. They said they could have intimate relationships with humans.
No, seriously, wow.
Quite a specific detail, isn't it?
Very different from the European view, generally. Okay, and Japan, what were Japanese merfolk like?
In Japan, you have the ningyo, which literally means human fish. But be careful, the image is often really different from the, typical beautiful Western mermaid.
No, what was it like then?
Often, it was pictured more like a large fish, but with a human head stuck on top. And sometimes with kind of monstrous features, like some texts mention a monkey's mouth.
Yeah.
How different. And what were the beliefs around them? Were they dangerous or...
There was this really strong belief, eat the flesh of a niño and you'd get a super long life, maybe even immortality.
Wow.
There's that famous story, Yao Kuni, someone who ate niño meat without knowing it and supposedly lived for 800 years. Imagine.
Impressive, but was there a catch? A downside?
Yes, big downside. Catching a niño was considered terrible luck, like it could bring awful storms and just general misfortune. So the advice was basically, better leave them alone.
How interesting, that duality. They offer eternal life, but catching one brings disaster. Quite the dilemma.
And if we keep going through Asia, Korea, Southeast Asia.
Well, Korea definitely has its sea legends, like one about an old governor who rescued some captured mermaids. In the Philippines, they call them sirena, like in Spanish, or sometimes sioy.
And are they similar?
The stories really vary. You get everything from underwater queens and goddesses falling for humans to fiercer types, even some described with 2 fins instead of 1. Really diverse. And down in Indonesia, specifically Java, there's the incredibly powerful sea goddess, Nyai Roro Kidul. And she sometimes appears in the form of a mermaid called Nyai Blorong.
So we're seeing this huge diversity across Asia, and that idea of powerful, sometimes ambiguous water spirits, that echoes if we jump over to Africa too. Right?
Exactly. In many parts of Africa, particularly West and Central, and also really importantly in the Afro-American cultures that developed through the diaspora, the key figure is Mami Wata.
Mami Wata, mother of the water.
That's it. And she's described sometimes as a mermaid, but other times she can be male or even linked with snakes. She's a very fluid figure, you could say.
And how is she viewed good, bad, or more complex?
There you go. It's the complexity. She's incredibly powerful, tied to wealth, to healing, but also to danger. She's deeply respected, venerated even, but also feared, you know.
Oh.
The female Mami Watas especially have that reputation for luring men into the water towards perdition. A bit like the Greek sirens sometimes. But it's a much more complicated relationship than the simple good mermaid, bad mermaid split you sometimes see in Europe.
I understand. A more sort of holistic view of water's power.
And going back to Arab stories for a second, you mentioned they pop up in the Thousand One Nights.
They do, yeah, but in a really interesting way. They talk about sea people, but they aren't described as half-fish.
Oh, how then?
They're basically anatomically just like us, people on dry land. The only difference is they can breathe and live underwater. They can even marry humans and have kids. There's a whole story about it.
A totally different take again. Parallel species, almost.
Okay, now let's cross the big pond. What happens when these stories arrive in the Americas, with that huge mix of cultures colliding?
In the Americas, that fusion is just crystal clear. In the Caribbean, for instance, the Neo-Taino peoples talk about Ikaia.
And then, with the forced migration from Africa, you get these incredibly strong figures emerging, like Yamaya in Brazil and Cuba. She's an Orisha, Yoruba sea goddess, sometimes shown as a mermaid, or La Sirene in Haiti, also hugely important.
You mentioned Brazil. Apart from Yamaya, is there a really well-known local mermaid legend there?
Oh yes, the Brazilian legend is Iara, the Mandagua, or Lady of the Water. And her story is fascinating because it changed so much over time.
How did it change?
Well, it seems like originally it came from indigenous myths about either a giant water serpent or maybe even a male spirit that devoured fishermen called Ipupiara. Nothing like a beautiful mermaid at first.
Right, so how did she end up as this beautiful mermaid figure? Why the shift?
Almost certainly due to European influence, you see. Stories mingling. The figure just transformed into this incredibly beautiful woman, long hair, green eyes, immortal. The classic mermaid image, basically.
Right, the one who lures men with her singing to her palace under the water, blamed for disappearances in the Amazon. It's such a clear example of how legends blend and evolve, adapt to new contexts.
It really is fascinating how each culture puts its own spin on it. But with so many stories everywhere, you have to wonder, did people actually claim to see them? I mean, beyond the myths, there were reports of sightings.
Oh, loads of them. Throughout the ages, accounts of people swearing they'd seen mermaids are just countless. Even back in ancient Rome, Pliny the Elder wrote about supposed sightings off the coast of, well, modern-day Portugal.
Any famous names on that list? Someone we'd know?
Christopher Columbus. In 1493, near Hispaniola, he actually noted in his diary that he saw 3 mermaids. But, get this, he specifically added they weren't as beautiful as people claimed because they sort of masculine features.
And that...
Today, we're pretty sure what he saw were manatees, you know, those big sort of slow-moving marine mammals, easy to mistake from a rocking boat back then, imagine.
Oh, right, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And there were other reports, too. Explorers like Henry Hudson up in the Arctic in 1608, people in Greenland, the Philippines. In the 17th century, they talked about a womanfish, which was almost definitely a dugong, another animal similar to the manatee.
And reports still pop up even now, don't they?
It seems so, or at least people keep thinking they see them. There was that really big case in Israel back in 2009 in a coastal town. They even offered a reward for photos.
You're kidding. Did anything come of it?
Nothing concrete, no. It just stayed a mystery. And then in Zimbabwe in 2012, some construction workers building dams actually walked off the job saying mermaids had scared them off and wouldn't let them work.
That's wild. It's incredible how the idea just persists. But how did they make these stories sound believable back in, say, the 18th or 19th centuries? Skepticism was growing then, right?
Yes, and it's really interesting how they structured those reports to sound credible. They often followed a pattern, you see. They'd usually start by acknowledging the skepticism, saying something like, yeah, I know this sounds crazy, most people don't believe it, to kind of get the skeptical reader on side.
Like saying, look, I get it, this sounds weird, but...
Exactly. But then came the techniques. Direct testimony was key. I saw it myself. And the witnesses were usually ordinary folk, fishermen, sailors, kids watching sheep near the coast, servants, people without much social power.
And that helped how?
Well, to give it real credibility, that personal story was often backed up by someone important locally. The village priest, a respected landowner, the sheriff. That person would vouch for the witness, say they were honest, not prone to lying. And that's how the story might end up in newspapers or even reports to scientific societies. The logic was, If this trustworthy person saw it, it must be true. Seeing is believing.
Right. Social validation. And I bet the descriptions were super detailed too to make it sound more convincing, not like some vague dream.
Exactly. They really focused on the human-like features, describing the faces full and white or plump, the eyes blue or light gray, the nose small and pretty, a natural mouth, small white teeth, long hair, sometimes brown, sometimes this oily green color.
Wow, that level of detail.
Oh yeah, and mentioning the breasts, the abdomen, the arms and fingers, stressing that the body was the size of an adult human. I really wanted to make it clear, this wasn't just a weird fish or a seal, it was definitely part human, setting it apart from known sea creatures.
Right, looking for proof in the humanness of it all. But we also know there were some clever folks who took advantage of this fascination, right? The famous hoaxes. Not all sightings were genuine confusion.
Oh, absolutely not. Not all romantic legends are innocent mistakes. The most famous fraud, the one everyone kind of knows, is the Fiji mermaid.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. What was it?
It was exhibited in London, then brought to the U.S. in the 19th century by the one and only P.T. Barnum, master showman and, well, master of the hoax, too.
And what was that mermaid, really? The idea kind of creeps me out.
And rightly so. It was pretty gruesome, honestly. Made by Japanese fishermen, apparently. It was the top half of a monkey, probably a young orangutan, taxidermied, sewn onto the tail end of a large fish.
No. Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, a taxidermy nightmare.
Yeah.
But back then, with less information readily available and this huge public appetite for the exotic and unbelievable, it worked. People paid good money to see it.
What a thing. And was it common to make those things?
It seems like there was a whole cottage industry, especially in Asia, making these fake creatures. They'd sell them as exotic curiosities to European sailors passing through.
Even in Europe, though.
Yep, Europe had its versions too, like the
Yeah.
Jenny Hanover. They made those by drying and shaping rays or skates to look like little demons or tiny mermaids. It's actually a pretty old tradition.
How bizarre. So between genuine mistakes like spotting manatees or dugongs and these deliberate fakes, the reality of the mermaid gets pretty slippery, doesn't it?
Totally. Modern science, obviously, has found zero proof, not a single scale of their actual existence. They are absolutely creatures of folklore, of myth, but that doesn't stop them swimming very strongly in our imagination and culture.
Right, because whether they were real or not almost doesn't matter now. They're still here in art, in stories. They're unforgettable, you know?
Without a doubt. And the example we probably all know best, maybe the most iconic one, is The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen from 1837.
The total classic.
Absolutely, that story. The young mermaid dreaming of an immortal soul, the love of a human prince, willing to give up her voice and suffer agony to get legs. Phew. It still hits a nerve, doesn't it?
Although Anderson's original ending is way more bittersweet than some of the movie versions we know, right? It wasn't a simple happily ever after.
Much sadder, definitely.
Yeah.
The Little Mermaid doesn't end up with the prince. She turns into sea foam. Although afterwards, she is given a chance to earn a soul, but as an air spirit, by helping people.
Yeah.
It's more melancholic, but maybe more profound, too.
Right.
But beyond the ending, it's that core idea, the longing, the radical transformation, the sacrifice for love, or just to be different, that idea of bridging two completely different worlds. That's what makes it so powerful and lasting.
Totally agree. And where else do we see mermaids today, besides stories and films?
Oh, they pop up in surprising places. Heraldry, for instance, on coats of arms.
Mm-hmm.
You might be surprised there are actually more mermaids than mermen featured on family crests or city shields.
Really? Any famous examples?
Well, the coat of arms for Warsaw, the capital of Poland. It has a warrior mermaid, the Syrenka, and she's been the city symbol for centuries. Or the shield of the O'Flaherty clan in Ireland.
Yeah.
And even the logo of a certain very, very famous coffee chain. It's a mermaid. You've probably seen it 1,000 times.
That's true. I never really thought about that one.
And now, look how curious. There's this whole movement, like a subculture, of people who actually dress up and swim as mermaids and mermen. It's called mermaiding. They use these incredible elaborate tails.
Yeah, I've seen videos online. It's amazing how the figure just keeps reinventing itself. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground, huh? From ancient goddesses in Assyria, omens in stormy British seas, impossible loves in Cornwall, ambiguous spirits in Africa and Asia, right up to fairground hoaxes. It's just incredible how this one hybrid figure, the mermaid, stays so potent across centuries and cultures.
It really is fascinating, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why are we so drawn to them? Why do they stick around? Maybe it's tied to our eternal fascination with the ocean itself. that huge, mysterious world that's right next door, but so completely different from ours.
Could be the mystery of the sea itself.
Right. The sea's always been this symbol of the unknown, the deep, the dangerous, but also the wonderful. It gives life, but it can take it away too. Mermaids kind of embody that duality, maybe.
Or perhaps they're like a mirror, where we see our own hopes and fears reflected back.
That tension between beauty and danger, maybe. The dream of changing ourselves, completely, radically transforming. The desire to connect with something totally different, with the other, whatever that might be.
The fascination with difference itself.
Exactly. And maybe, deep down, they touch on that really big question about what it even means to be human. Where do our boundaries lie? What happens if we cross that line between our world and another one?
A question that just keeps floating there, doesn't it? Like a melody over the waves. What do mermaids mean to you, listening right now? Something to keep thinking about, maybe, while your imagination plays along the shoreline. Until next time.